Hey everyone, Anthony here with InTouch Mortgage Solutions. Just jumping on real quick. Wanted to share some of our thoughts and opinions on the current market, what we're seeing happening in the news. Obviously, a lot of conversation around home buyers coming back, roaring back to life. We're seeing now might be the opportunity, and we see a lot of people on the news outlets saying now's the time to buy, don't wait, or wait, the market's going to adjust a little bit more. And obviously, these are great conversation points. They might be clickbait. Listen to me. I know what's going on. Realistically, nobody does, right? Nobody knows what's really happening. And I think what everyone's failing to talk about is the individual behind that transaction and what's happening in their life. And this is the conversation I want to have with our viewers and our clients today. So we welcome you back to the channel. It's Friday, Finance Fridays, and I'm your host, Anthony with InTouch Mortgage Solutions. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the channel, we invite you to do so. Please go ahead, hit that notification bell, share, like, and comment on the video. Let's get right into it. Over the last little while, over the last 3 months, we've definitely seen the business pick up in different directions. Over the past little while, we've been working with clients that are refinancing, renewing, equity takeout, so on and so forth. A couple purchases here and there in the mix, but mostly we've seen a big uptick in purchases since November. Now, I wanted to do this video a little while ago just to have this conversation, but before I did that, I wanted to make sure that obviously, not from the media, right? The media is great, they're gonna talk about it, but I wanted to actually reach out to individuals, other professionals in the area, other colleagues in the mortgage industry to see if this is what is actually happening, if they're justified in these news headlines. And to my surprise, it is happening, right? So we're feeling it happening in real time. The phone's ringing. So I think it's time to have this conversation. So along the lines of the market right now, there are so many things that are changing. What we're hearing from our clients, this is not us telling you, this is what we're hearing. And sometimes we agree with what's being said, sometimes we disagree with what's being said. But for the most part, the consensus is that the interest rates are starting to come off. The Bank of Canada has now shifted from the hiking mentality to a pause and potentially a cut. So a cut will happen. It's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when. And if we look at the Bank of Canada's previous history on when, how long they've held rates, and then before they've cut them, it's usually that 3 to 2 year mark. Now, obviously this time can be different. Those are dangerous words, but this is what we see historically. And this is what clients are coming to us with, right? Remember, we're not telling them go buy a home. They're calling us saying, hey, I want to do a pre-approval because I think the market's going to X, Y, Z. So what's shifting right now? Fixed rate mortgages, potential for the Bank of Canada to cut. People thinking, hey, I better front run the market before spring because if interest rates drop, Bank of Canada cuts, I'm going to be competing in multiple offers. I'm going to be potentially in a bidding war. So I don't want to be there because of the fact that I have to have a conditional offer. I need a conditional offer because I don't have some particulars, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So that's happening. Now I'm looking at it going, okay, when do we see this happen before? Is there any validity to this conversation? And we'll sort of look and say, okay, back in January 2023, Bank of Canada came out with a 0.25% bump, a sequential pause, then the market sort of reignited, interest rates had sort of dropped a little bit, people came back, Bank of Canada increased twice, 0.25% each time, bringing it to 5%. That's where we are now. The Bank of Canada is held. So, we're looking at saying, is this a cycle? Is this a trend? What's going on right now, right? And I think it's a little too early right now to say that, hey, home prices are set to explode, because let's call a spade a spade. Rates are still way too high to really bring in a lot of this exuberance into the market. Even with a 5 or a 4 in front of them, you're gonna have limited qualification. You're gonna have a better buyer pool. You're gonna have a pool of buyers that are probably more qualified because obviously they have to qualify at the contract rate plus the 2% for the stress test rule. But we're still getting a lot of calls from clients that are looking at ways to get into the market. They see the immigration levels. They see the fact that builders aren't building. We're having a lot of these developments going to receivership or complications, which will kick the can for inventory further down the road, which is going to make the problem exponentially harder in 5 or 10 years from now. Even with a new government in place, I don't necessarily believe in my heart that, as much as I would love to maybe see a shift in government, maybe we move administrations from the Liberal to the Conservative Party. Whether you agree or disagree with that, if you look at the housing policy measures, yeah, Pierre might be a little bit better, but Can he solve a problem that's been decades in the making in 4 to 8 years? I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. Even if you incentivize building, the builders have to be comfortable to build. Builders want to build a home. They just need to be able to profit. Their margins need to make sense. And if interest rates are high and people aren't buying, and even if they were to stick a shovel in the ground today, it's generally 12 to 18 months or longer before that home or condo development hits the market. And generally with a home, it's already spoken for. They build that home. A lot of builders won't just build inventory and try to sell them. There might be cases where that does happen, but generally you buy the home, 12, 18 months down the road, you move in. You've already bought that house. Condos, 65 to 70% have to be pre-sold. Investors are not in the market right now buying up those percentages. So what's happening with development? So a lot of things to consider. People are seeing single family home starts, new construction family homes down. They're not building them anymore, too expensive. People can't buy them. So they're diverting to higher density, towns, semis, duplexes, this missing middle that we've talked about on the channel before. So people are like, I need to get in, I need a single family, I can't have a condo. The conversation is literally based on the qualification part, right? What's happening with me? Not what Joe Blow over there is saying or this guy over here is saying. Everybody pretends they know what they're saying. And we're not trying to say that we know better, but the guy that says don't buy, he has no stake in the game, right? He's saying don't buy. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's saying, okay, take caution. We agree. Caution is key. But what happens if the market goes? Is that guy going to be giving you the money, or that person going to be giving you the money that you've potentially lost or the opportunity lost? And if the market ends up going the other way, while that person's saying to buy now, are they going to be giving you the shortfall? No. So I think it's important to look at the middle and say, what is important to me as a buyer? Do I possess the tools to buy this home and weather the storm on whether or not I can afford this mortgage, right? At this interest rate or at that interest rate. Most people don't live in a spreadsheet. We've talked about it. They have their budgets, but they don't look at the economics. They don't look at the micro and the macroeconomics when they're buying. They're looking at, my family's growing, I need more space. My landlord's kicking me out, I need to move and I don't want to pay rent. I'm living with my parents right now. They're helping with some down payments so I can get on my get myself a house. Like, this is what's happening, right? People are not saying, well, the US is going to do this tomorrow and China's going to do that, and so I'm going to wait. Maybe a few of them are going to look at the market that way, but the majority of people aren't, especially when you look at a lot of the individuals that are arriving here in Canada. Home ownership is still main priority. Good job, start a family, live the Canadian dream, own a home. That's the mentality. And although affordability and mortgage affordability and the crisis that we're facing in the country is sad, there's still a lot of people that qualify, there's a lot of people that still make good money and they're ready and able to buy a home. That is the bottom line. First-time home buyers, a lot of different situations. You can't put yourself in each one of those buckets, right? So if you're an individual right now thinking about everything I'm saying, Anthony, what do I do here? What do I do? Really, realistically, you need a pre-approval. Obviously we're not trying to play it off the pre-approval. You need a pre-approval. You need to know what you're qualified for. You need to lock in a rate in case rates go up. What you need to really conscientiously think about is, if there's so many buyers that have a large deposit, they have bank of mom and dad, they have co-signers and guarantors and reserve money, they have basically everything, the formula to bake a perfect cake, they can go into an offer night with no condition of financing, probably scoop the home, they can pay a little bit more. You're gonna potentially look at that situation. Now, nobody wants to pay a little bit more, right? Because you need an appraisal, and if that appraisal comes in lower, for that person who's got that money to throw at the property, it's a blow to the ego that they maybe overpaid. But if they're in a firm deal, they got the money to back them up, 50, 100 grand if they need it. Ideally, I told you, they don't want it, but they went into a firm deal knowing the risks. So this is why I always say you need a condition of financing because you want an exit clause. But that person can turn around and say, can I go firm? And I'm like, well, based on the fact that you have way more down payment than you need, you have a mortgage that's 3 times smaller than what you qualify for, you can get more, but you need less. There's so many different, you have co-signers, you have extra money that your parents are willing to help you with if, God forbid, something happens. Go for it, right? There's really nothing holding you back. Income, credit, down payment, all that's checked off. On the other side, we have someone who doesn't have that luxury. They don't have the capacity to go into a firm offer because they don't have the support from family. Maybe they're new to Canada. They don't have anybody here to co-sign for them. They don't have the reserves because they're throwing everything that they have at the down payment to qualify just to get into that particular style of home. So this is the difference. Do you want to be competing in a market that has more demand, where there's more competition? There was a home, for example, case in point, there was one that just listed and sold for just under $1 under $1 million. There was about 85 offers, I think, on this home, listed around 750,000, ended up selling for just under $1 million. And 85 offers. Now, somebody may say, oh my, that's crazy, like 85 offers in this market. Now, I'm not saying that there's exuberance here. I'm not saying that, hey, this is a sign to go run to your bank or run to your broker, get a pre-approval and go out. But it tells us something. It tells us that there's people out there, whether or not these offers were all on point, like, because obviously only one person won that particular night, that offer night. But, maybe there was offers that were sub the list price that people thought, hey, let me get in there. I can probably try to lowball it. That didn't end up working. That's not working right now, right? The reason why I'm saying this is because we're looking at it from the ground floor, what's happening on our desk. Clients that came to us with homes that have been listed for 60, 90, 120 days, they're going back to try to offer, and the home has a condition on it. Like, it's happening right now. Homes that were well appointed, listed property, were selling even during the weaker times, but obviously now homes that are even need a little bit of work or not as desirable, they're selling. So that's happening. But back to my point. What we're trying to say is about people with pre-approvals with a condition of financing, you can't be competing in those particular offer nights. You don't stand a chance. And maybe your offer is a lot higher, so maybe that's going to entice the seller, but obviously you have to put on the hat of that seller. And I want to paint this picture before we end the video, because this is the best way that I can explain it. Eventually, the buyer will become a seller. At some point, they're going to buy the home. Maybe they're going to live in it forever, but most likely they're going to work their way up the property ladder. This is going to be their starter home. They're going to move into something else. So eventually, the buyer becomes the seller. Now, they're sitting at the desk. You're a buyer. You want the best price. You want to get it in. You want to get the house under market. You want to run away with the home. Eventually, you're going to become the seller, and you're going to want top dollar. You're going to want the best possible outcome for your home. And when you're looking at your situation, your financial situation, there could be someone who comes in with a conditional offer with 5 days, and you might be compassionate and you might say, look, if that offer is equivalent to this one, let's give it to this young couple. Maybe they've left an impression, but more than likely, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but generally from what I see from buyers and sellers that we're talking to, especially when we're dealing with sellers that are moving, they bought something, they want pre-approvals, they take the firm offer. They take the firm offer, even if it's a little bit less than the conditional one, because they know, and from the realtor's advice, to take the firm one because there's no exit. The conditional one, you might lose it in 5 days, the appraisal might not come back, and they got to go back, they got to relist it, and they don't want to go through the whole process again of having random people come through their home, and they don't want to have, imagine 85 people, just imagine 85, there's probably more than that, but imagine 85 people running through your home in 1 week. You can't be home. So if someone doesn't want to go through that, a lot of things to consider, but obviously I think the best piece of advice, look at your own financial situation. If you can compete and you have the ability to go into a firm offer because you have backing, you might want to wait, right? Let's just say that. If you're in a conditional offer and you can't go into a firm one because of whatever reason, worried about appraisal, you may want to get into the market when there's less action. And we don't know in the next little while what's going to happen, but at least you've tried, you've looked at your options. Let us know what you think in the comment sections below. Is now a good time? Let me hear from you, our viewers. What do you think is a good market? Are we in a balanced market? Are we in a buyer's market? Have we shifted from a seller's into a buyer's market? That's a good question. We'll definitely be talking a little bit more about what's happening as we get through the first part of 2024, and hopefully we'll see a lot of situations where clients can actually put in a conditional offer, but only time will tell. So we'll leave the video here, wishing everyone a wonderful Friday and an even better weekend ahead. Remember, if you didn't subscribe to the channel. If you learned something, share the video, but have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.